Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it is when you're watching this. Welcome to my Twitch stream. I'm Nick O'Leary, the lead dev of the Node-RED project. This is my weekly live stream where I'm going to spend a bit of time doing some development work on Node-RED. So it's not how to use Node-RED, it's about me working on the Node-RED project itself, hopefully to get more of you inspired to contribute to the project. It is Hacktoberfest this month, if you're familiar with that. Great month to get some meaningful pull requests into the project if you want to earn your Hacktoberfest swag. Anyway, got a few different things to do tonight. A little busy. Going to try and cram in a couple of different things. First up, we're going to get the 1.2.2 release published, get that done live. I've done lots of the preparatory stuff, just need to go through the final few motions to get that published. And then I want to talk a little bit about, there's some, the reason we're having to do 1.2.2 so soon, let alone the 2.1 release, is because bugs have got in that our unit tests didn't catch. So I'll show a little bit about how we approach testing in the project. And there's actually a specific area that we've fallen behind on, I think it's fair to say, and that's code coverage. You know, it's just one of the many measures about how well is the code tested. So whenever we run all of our unit tests, we get a measure of how many different lines of code and branches of the code are actually getting exercised. And it is something we used to be up in the 90%, but we've slipped back into the 70%. And in fact, there's some problems with the code coverage tool we're using, and we need to migrate to a different one. So time allowing, that's what I plan to do tonight to get this done. Now, I was toying with, should we get the code coverage done before we do the release or get the release done first? Well, the release is the release. Fixing the code coverage isn't going to change the quality of the release we're going to publish. So I kind of want to get the release done and underway and then dip into the code coverage because it's going to be the first step of making some quality improvements we want to do. And that's a ongoing effort. You never stop testing, and but I think it's important to reflect where you spot gaps and why certain issues, like the couple of issues that crept out in the 1.2 release, why were they not caught beforehand? Anyway, so say hi if you're in the chat. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment below. Let us know you watched it if you find this interesting. Otherwise, I'm just going to crack on. Mauricio, good to see you in the chat. Welcome back. So just to recap, if you're just joining, hey, Bald Geek, good to see you here. So let's get 1.2.2 published. So where are we at? Let me pull up main screen. There you go. So there was an issue raised. The gang's all here. Good evening, guys. So there was an issue with the restart flows option was broken, and that's a bit of refactoring we did. I did in some of the internals, moved who was responsible for some actions, and I thought incorrectly it was a simple case of just renaming something, but I failed to spot that a function had a different name in the two different locations. So it wasn't just rename which bit of the API it was in, the function name changed as well. So that was a silly mistake that should have been caught, and it should have been caught by the unit tests, but it wasn't. So anyway, we've got a fix for that. one of the other fixes that went into 1.2 was around recovering nodes that had lost the tab they're on. And coincidentally, someone on the forum earlier this morning hit some problems that it was misbehaving. So I've pushed some more fixes which try and eliminate the cases where nodes forget what tabs they're on, or at least does it more gracefully. So some useful fixes have gone in, and I'm showing you entirely the wrong window. Here we are. So a few fixes around handling of Z properties in the editor. Well, let's make this big so you can see. And fixing the API issue around reloading flows. So we're going to do 1.2.2 now. The changelog is updated. The version string is updated. If you've not seen, I did a video earlier in the summer of doing a maintenance release, but we have various scripts I can run. So set package version 1.2.2, I run that, and that updates the version number in all of our package files. Because I've already done that, that's all good. And in fact, everything's already pushed up to GitHub. We're all good, so we can actually just do the release. So first thing we do is run grunt release. So this builds all the code as if we were going to run it, and then runs through and builds the tar files for all the different nodes. And that's done. And then we go into the .dist directory, and in there is a zip file which basically contains all the tar files, and a modules directory which contains all the individual tar files, and a handy publish script which lists all the nodes. Now that's invaluable because if it's a beta release, and if the version number is 1.2.2 hyphen beta whatever, then the code that generates this script knows to add in the extra arguments to npm publish to publish it as with the next tag and not latest. Right, so that's all ready to go. So we're just going to go, first things we do with the release, the code's all pushed. We go create a release in GitHub, draft it. We're going to tag it 1.2.2. Oh no, not milestone. 1.2.2 maintenance release, and then I go get the changelog, paste that in. I get a finder window. Go into the dist directory, and we just drop that zip file and attach that. The one downside of doing a release whilst I'm live streaming is obviously this is uploading a few megabytes whilst I'm also trying to upload the stream. So I imagine right now this is freezing the stream. Okay, so that's all done. 1.2.2. We're going to hit publish. Let me just think through. Yep, publish that. So that's now published. We come back to our modules directory, and what we can do is actually run the publish script. So I'm going to run this in the full expectation this is going to eat up my bandwidth, so things might stall. I'll be back. If it does freeze and hang, I'll be back in a minute once this publish is finished. So let's just get that publishing. Okay, so on the assumption that the stream is doing something, or at least that you can still hear me, that's now just going through and npm publishing each of the 7 modules, doing them in almost like reverse order. So it does all the internal modules first, and then the main node red module as the last one. Yeah, so okay, so the stream, thanks Steve. Good to know. It's almost, I've got a second laptop over here running, just playing back what the stream, what in theory you guys can see. And I sort of glance over and sometimes see it stalling, which, yeah, which could be my upstream or it could be my downstream, who knows. That's all published. Okay, so we're done. Now, in the background, we've got some GitHub Actions running. So if I go to the repo for the website, go to pull requests, and you'll see there is already a pull request here, update Node-RED 1.2.2 release. So I just merged that straight away, and that just updates the version number on the homepage. That's good. And then I go to the Node-RED Docker repo, check pull requests, and again, we have a pull request to update to the 1.2.2 release, which I can just merge. And then in the case of the Docker one, I have one more action I have to do. I go create a release in the Docker repo. 1.2.2, but for reasons, the tags in the Docker repository start with a V. 1.2.2 maintenance release, update to Node-RED 1.2.2. We publish that. That then kicks off the Travis build, which will update the images on Docker Hub. And that's the release done. I'd normally tweet about it and do forum blog posts. I will do those, but I'm going to, in the interest of time, there's no point you guys watching me write a tweet and write a forum post. I'm going to get on with the next part of tonight, which is around code coverage. So whenever we run a build, we run all of our unit tests against the core runtime and the nodes. And historically, we've used a tool called Istanbul, which is a code coverage tool. And what that does is it takes all of your source code and it instruments it and then runs your tests using that instrumented source code. So it's able to record for every single line of code, has that line been exercised? Has it been evaluated? Have we run that line? Every time there's an if and else block, it can tell us, have we covered every branch? Have we hit every else, every if, every condition? So it's quite useful. I mean, it's not a be-all and end-all of testing, but it's certainly a useful tool to know, have you got tests that at least hit all the different areas of your source code. Now, the problem is we've not really been paying attention. We still get the Istanbul coverage results with every pull request and the like, but we've kind of stopped paying attention to it, which is a problem. One of the reasons is you can see this big stack trace on the screen, and this is the log from a Travis run from this afternoon on node 14. Lots of errors because Istanbul doesn't support the newer JavaScript syntax. So it can't instrument source files with the newer syntax in, which means you don't get code coverage on those files. Now, Istanbul has long since, it turns out, been superseded by NYC as a alternative coverage tool. In fact, its homepage is still istanbul.js.org, so it's by the same maintainers. But it's a sort of a re-architected, rebuilt version. So what I was going to spend a bit of time tonight is figuring out how we swap over to use NYC instead of Istanbul. So first, a little tour of how we do use whatever we use. So we use Grunt as our task runner that does all of our build tasks and maintenance tasks of running builds and running tests. Right, let's just think through how to... The way it works is in Grunt is you register tasks, which are things it can do. And then you define tasks which chain up a series of tasks. So, for example, where is it? This is the one we care about, well, for the moment. Test core. So this is this is what happens when I'm in the repo and I run grunt test core. This is what's happening. It is running a build. And the Equalify step always takes a bit too long. And I'm going to hit Control-C when this kicks off. There we go. So what have we got here? Huge screen. I mean, here's the stack trace because Istanbul can't cope with our ES6 syntax. In fact, yeah, okay, it's filled my scroll buffer. And yes, that was running the test core task. And what the test core task is, it first runs a build, then it's running this Mocha Istanbul semicolon core. So Mocha Istanbul is a task we have defined up here somewhere. Here we go. Mocha Istanbul, let's just collapse this down a bit so we can see more of it. Yeah, so this is the task, and it defines a set of options that get passed the task, and then here are the sort of the flavors of it, all, core, and nodes, and that's defining what files we want it to run Mocha, which is the test runner, wrapped up in Istanbul. So we need to swap in NYC for Istanbul. And very usefully, someone has created a grunt simple NYC, which is a task runner that wraps up NYC. Now, I have had a quick search around. In fact, I'm going to do another search now. It's always hard to tell because grunt is slightly old, and it's not. Well, I guess it does its work well, but it's not the most active of projects. So sometimes you do have to dig around a bit to try and find what's the right task. And I mean, even with these, if I search for grunt and NYC, there's grunt simple NYC, which is the one I'm looking at, which hasn't been updated for a year. Equally though, if it works, it's not something you expect to need constant maintenance. And there's this other one which is 3 years old, which, to be frank, not going to go near that. So let's have a look to see how far we can get with grunt simple NYC. First up, we're just going to install it. So npm install grunt simple NYC with the -- save dev because we want to add it to our dev dependencies. Okay, we'll let that tick on in the background. Then there's this line, load npm tasks, which we're going to drop in. Where are we going to drop that in? There must be, yes. I'll drop that in down here. So this is where we load in all of our other tasks. Okay, and there must be one for Istanbul. Yeah, there's grunt mocha Istanbul, but we'll be getting rid of that one in a minute. And then here's an example configuration for NYC. Let's go back up to where we had Mocha Istanbul. So an important difference between this NYC task and Mocha Istanbul is designed to run the Mocha test runner having been wrapped in Istanbul, which is exactly what we want. But this NYC task is only half the puzzle. It's the it does the NYC instrumentation of the code, and then you have to give it a command to run. So in this example, it then just delegates out calling grunt with the Mocha unit, assuming that's the task you want to do. So it's slightly different, but we can work with that. So we're just going to grab, I think this is right. We're going to just drop that in. It's not exactly how we want it configured yet. Let's fix up the errors they have in their own example. Right. So what we're going to do is we also have simple Mocha, which is a task that can run the unit tests, but it run the unit tests, but without Istanbul getting involved. Now I've just noticed it has fallen behind in terms of where the tests are. It's fallen behind, so I'm just going to update those to keep things happy. So okay, so that's installed fine. So if I run, for example, simple Mocha core, so that launches straight into Mocha running through the core unit tests. Well, that's interesting. There was a failure in the middle of all that. I'm not going to get distracted. Stay on target. Okay, so when we run, I think how we do this is, I always get slightly confused with the way that grunt task definitions and options get passed in. At the moment, I'm just going to focus on getting it working for core, and we'll worry about the rest later. So it also kind of assumes you are familiar with the NYC command line. We're just going to blunder our way through it to try and figure it out. What we want is we want to, when we run, use the current working directory. In fact, I'm going to comment that out, see if we can get away with that. We want to include, when we instrument, let's have a look. So that's interesting. When we, here it is. You can see how we specified what to include. This is the glob that we were passing into Istanbul. So we'll reuse that here. We don't need to exclude anything, I don't think. Actually, I'll comment it out. There are bits we could to just make it a bit tidier, but won't worry about that for the moment. Report formats, I had both LCOV and HTML, so we'll just stick with that for the moment. And we'll create a coverage directory all through. Yeah, this all looks fine. Command false, what's that mean? What does command false mean, do you think? Let's see. Let's just leave it as it is. And we're going to go for grunt simple Mocha core. So it shouldn't take too long. Okay. So with that done, what happens if we run grunt nyc? Okay. Well, it's running tests. We're now going to have to just wait and see whether it has you know what, this is going to be quicker if I quickly just add in a this is in the simple mocker. We're just going to get it to test rather than run all the tests. We are going to run it in test unit. Where's my test unit Node-RED. Let's go into the runtime, lib, flows for no real reason. Yeah, we're going to come into here. So it'll be much quicker just to run this small subset of tests than everything. And then modify nyc to run simple mocker quick. And head back out and then run grunt nyc. So yeah, apparently that's done the coverage and now it's running the tests. Okay, coverage failed. That's interesting. Global leaks detect. Okay. I suspect now that we're able to get the coverage. Right. But tell me up for a sec. This just tests current active code. When you do a release, you do an regression. So these are unit tests, is the test we're running here. So we have unit tests for every single source file in the core of Node-RED that tests the functionality of that file and the functionality it provides. And that's good for just doing sort of getting basic coverage sorted, and verifying all your functions are doing what they claim to do or what you've asked them to do. The problem is, and this is one of the reasons why we've just had to do a 1.2.2 release, is sometimes when you're testing a unit, you will create mocks and fakes of other parts of the system so that you can just test this bit and you simulate the bits around it. So the unit tests are good to make sure individual bits work, but you end up having to also create slightly bigger system tests that test the interaction between all the different components. And that's where the gap, I think, that's where we had a gap which allowed this regression to get into 1.2.2. Integration tests, exactly. Now, no, don't run. Oh, man, right. And yes, we do regression test in the sense that we spend time using Node-RED and verifying it. But, there's a lot of functionality in Node-RED, and try as we might, we can't manually test everything every time. It's why we do the beta releases. Okay, let me just switch back on here and just focus on what's going on. So coverage summary, lots of zeros. It's run the tests, but we've not managed to get any coverage. NYC, it is New York City, and their previous module was called Istanbul. I don't know why. There will be an explanation on their site, I'm sure. But whether the original developer was Turkish and he moved to America, I don't know. But what's going on here? So we're trying to include packages node mod. Yeah, we want all the source code. That's basically, we've got to now just try and find the right incantation so that it actually generates some output. Is this actually... So it's created a coverage directory. Let's have a look. Yeah. Actually nothing in the coverage output. So what's going wrong then? Maybe it is fussy about current working directory. Let's try that. Oops. Yeah, see, this is... Yeah, it's all going very... I think we'll know when it's worked. Right. How can we... What can we do to figure this out? Yeah, command files... I wondered about that, but I got command files straight from their example. And right, let's see, we want... There's a lot going on here. Packages note, I mean, this is right. I'm not being spectacularly dense. Yeah, no, that is right. Include star.js. I mean, that's... I can't believe that would do it. Oh, it took slightly longer on the cover task. Nope. Okay. I haven't got exclude set. Options cover. Maybe we need to try and thrash this out on the command line. So let's go look at NYC itself. If we can get this working on the command line, it will be easier to figure out what's going on. So kind of what I hope to avoid. I was kind of hoping this would just work. Yeah, so I'm going to try running NYC manually and actually try and read the documentation, which I know is crazy talk, but okay. Here we go. This trips us up in other places. So they ignore node modules directories because typically with npm, node modules is where your third-party stuff is, and you don't want to faff around with that. But we actually have source code we want to cover under node modules. So thankfully, they include a flag that will not cause it to exclude it. So let's see. And that's good. The cover task's now taking longer. Quite a bit longer. Quite a lot longer. So it's definitely doing something now. Boom. Okay. Right. And I thought this may happen. We need to actually exclude, because we don't want it, we're not going to be running any coverage on the editor source code, because we don't have unit tests for the editor that run in this setup. So there's no point. There is no point trying to instrument editor client. Okay, so let's see where this gets to now. Yeah, so our... Oh, yeah, doing stuff. Happy, done. Oh, still 0%. Okay, so it ran the tests. Where are we? And then simple mocker, but... okay. So the interesting point is what's it actually doing? Where does it actually put the instrumented versions of the files? Because obviously when I run grunt mocker, how does MYC know that it's been instrumented? Where does the instrumented stuff end up? That's an interesting thought. It's a bit different when we were using the Mocha Istanbul runner, because it just hid all of that. Okay, use package dev dependencies. Now you get to watch me read documentation, which is not the most thrilling of a live stream. Configuration personnel conf. Babel, we don't worry about Babel, we don't worry about TypeScript, that's all good. Okay. Lots of good options here. Or does it? Does this by watching files that were required during the test. When a file is required, NYC creates and returns an instrumented version of the source rather than the original. Only source files that are visited during a test will appear in the coverage report and contribute to coverage statistics. NYC will instrument all files if the all flag is set or if running NYC instrument. In this case, all files will appear in the coverage report. NYC will only collect coverage for files that are located under CWD, and then only files with extensions listed in the extension array. Okay, so there's lots of interesting bits and pieces there. So what happens if, because we only really care about if we set the current working directory to the directory with all our source code in. All true, okay. And then, well, I think so I've got all true, I expect that's gonna, oh man. All flag, caching, coverage thresholds, parsing hints, ignore. Okay, let's see. Having added in or changed the current working directory, temp dir maybe, temp dir. Let's have a look. No, that's not done anything. I think. Oh, I was kind of hoping this would just work. Directory output raw coverage. That's where the raw coverage is going. Is this the default? Yeah. So by default, it's putting it into NYC output. Let's just go and have a look in NYC output. Sure enough, and there's some JSON files. Wow. And that's just 2 million characters worth of, I think that's like a map file of where every statement, line and hujima flip is in the source code. So it's done something, but the challenge is why does that not get carried through? I'm intrigued by this command false. The more, that seems iffy, and I'm struggling to relate that through to what's that option mean? And they keep using command false, which, you know what's the worst? Let's just comment that out. I'm going to change current working directory because I think we had a bit more activity when I had that set. Oh, that's blown straight away. Enoent. Okay. Is that because I set that to false? Or turn that off? Yep. Oh, it's taking its time that time, so it does feel like it was doing something useful. But the coverage report is empty. Oh, no, it's not. No, it is not. Aha. So the summary it's spitting out, the coverage summary it spits out in the task is duff, but the HTML it generates, it's got data. Interesting. Okay. That's good progress. So now let's just try and figure out what this coverage summary, what is breaking that. Now that's coming out in the NYC report task. Out of interest, I'm going to if we get rid of all that, let's see what happens next. So if this bit works, yeah. Aha. Okay, so now we've got a meaningful coverage summary. That's better. Now, aesthetically, I don't like the fact I've no longer got coloured output from running Mocha. Yeah, so that's getting very basic. Now we're generating the HTML output, so that's goodness. LCOV is the sort of standard for line code coverage reporters. HTML, obviously the browsable web pages, and the text summary is this little block here, which is nice. Now, what the when we run, we also use coveralls. Now, let me just, how do we do stuff with coveralls? Curious. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud now because we used to, do we not spit code coverage? So I'm talking in half sentences. Let me step back. If we go look at a recent, let's say, pull request, one that has been merged, then one of the checks we run, view details. No, we didn't get any coverage reports. What's happened to our coverage reports? Have we turned those off? Okay, I'm muttering, which isn't helpful for you guys. Right now, the main point to take away is we're now generating good coverage numbers. So what I'm going to do is now get rid of this quick task because we don't want that. And what we want is we want NYC to run right, again, I'm just thinking it through in my head what I'm trying to say. I think what we can do is set this up so that we have coverage for core all core and nodes to match the 3 different bits that we care about. All core and nodes. Okay, and then down here where we have our test core, instead of running Mocha Istanbul, we're going to run NYC core. And where else have we got Mocha Istanbul in here? So Mocha Istanbul nodes. So again, we should just swap in the NYC task for that. And all, and there's another one where we're going to swap in NYC. That's the default task. That's what actually runs in the main build. We'll finish getting rid of Mocha Istanbul in a moment. So what should happen now if I run grunt test core, we should see, so it runs the build. Okay. So it didn't like how I'd restructured things. And I think, yeah, okay. I moved command false. Oops. I moved command false into this options object where it wasn't previously. I think it just wants to be in here. But let's see if that works. So now run test core, it runs the build. We have to wait for uglify to minify all the source code. NYC core, so that's now instrumenting stuff. And then, yeah, it's now running simple Mocha core. I saw it flash past. Now what's interesting is that subflow test that failed last time is passed this time, so that's curious, but I'm not gonna go hunting for that right this second. Ooh. Oh no, it didn't pass. Okay, that did fail. In fact, a few tests have failed. Interesting. Haha. Okay. What's gone on there? So it has created right. That's funny. So we have a test that verifies that we have a test file for every single JavaScript file in the source tree. And the build will fail if it finds spec files that are empty, that are either missing, or as in it's found JavaScript but it's not found a corresponding test. But looking through these are all in test unit coverage, so, and they don't exist. I think they've been generated, and then this underscore spec test has stumbled across them. Yeah, so where have they come from? If we just run that test manually. Okay, it's failing, definitely failing. Right, so they are failing because of this coverage directory, the HTML output it's generated, and it's finding the JavaScript in the web pages that it's generated. Ooh. Okay, still complaining. Where are they? Missing or empty spec files. So test unit coverage. So this file, what have we done? Where have we, somehow we've created a file that it thinks should have a unit test, but it really shouldn't. I'm just gonna brute force it. There they are. So, we don't care about no modules. So it's created a coverage directory in here, which I don't think should still exist. So we're just going to delete that. I think in one of our experimental runs it's generated that. There, so that's now passing. Good. Right, let's just run simple grunt simple mocker core. No, what am I doing? Grunt test core. So there were still 2 other unit test failures, and well, one of them was a potential global leak, which is not one to lose sleep over, but we can tidy it up. And the other one, well, we'll see. So that's now running through the unit tests in the core. I'd love, after this I'm going to dig to see if can we get the coloured output going again, because it's far easier to watch that fly by when it's proper coloured output. Okay, so 2 tests are failing. Oh yeah, and they're both global leaks. Okay, they are fairly innocuous. Basically, now either the test or the code has not declared a variable properly and it's left things hanging. So line 83 of installer spec, can we open that? Line 83. Okay, so let's go have a look at installer.js. So somewhere in here we've got a variable called e, which, and there it is. Is that right? Yeah, so you can see we have a variable which we weren't properly declaring as var. In fact, being a good citizen, there's no reason for that not to be const, because we don't care about it. And then the other one was in subflows. So I think it's interesting. I think this goes to show the fact that Istanbul's not been instrumenting the code for a while means these things have crept in. So yeah, good to have spotted this. So somewhere we've got a J, a K and a wires. Let's go see if we can find a J in here anywhere. No, what about wires? There's one. No, but we do declare it there. There's another wires. Do we have? Yeah, that's in scope. It's a var wires. That's fine. There's a wires. That's. Oh, it's a bit, I need to update this code to use lets and consts properly to get rid of some of this. Here we go. This is it. Remap subflow nodes. There was a wires that doesn't have a var wires anywhere near it. Okay, we're narrowing them down. Somewhere it claims there's a K, but oh, there we have it. Both a J and a K. And it's the same function. I tell you why. This block of code used to be elsewhere where JK and wires were already declared. So now I bet if we run test core. Sometimes this is just the the churn of software development. It's not all the glamour of diving into new features and doing all the design work and implementing. You do have to just churn through these sorts of chores. Okay, well, that's whizzing by. Let's see how that progresses. Oh, failed. Okay, so it's just still something in registry installer. Let's go have another look in there. I bet there's another anonymous error. Yeah. Oh no, that one is declared. Oops. 1, 2. So those have a var e up above it, and those two. That looks okay. Let's see. This should. If this fixes it, then we're committing, and we'll call it a night. So 1.2.2 published. Let us know if you've installed it and how you get on. What's coming up? So the plan has us doing 1.3 in the new year, in January. Don't yet have a sense of exactly what the priorities or the focus will be for that release. We want to make progress on the testing framework, the flow debugger and the linter. Whether any one of those gets where we get to with any of those, we'll have to wait and see. Otherwise, lots going on. Okay, so that's run, and what I'm finding quite curious now is the numbers are just quite so low. We only have 41%. Okay, so now these numbers are low because we've instrumented the whole code base, not just. So we've only run the unit tests for the core. We haven't run the node unit tests as well. So it's instrumented all the core code and the nodes, and then it's only run tests against the core. So yes, those are low percentages, but that's because that's what, that's the coverage we've only tested half the code that we did the coverage for. So why don't we, whilst we think about this, I think what I can do is I think if can we add another layer of options? In fact, we don't want. And if we're testing core, we want to exclude packages, node modules, node red, nodes. So this will be interesting to see whether, I'm pretty sure I should be able to add custom options for this task, which sort of override, this options block are the globals or the defaults, and then if we're doing the core, it will then layer that on as well. So let's just run that in the background, and it either blows up straight away because it doesn't like it, or it does what we want, or it does exactly what it did before. And we'll find out in a minute. So we've got 1.3 thinking about that and thinking about how to make progress on those items. Another task that's come up somewhat unexpectedly at the end of last week is the web host for the Flow library. It's on my personal web host. I just paid up for another 2 years, aware that, okay, that's blown up. Okay, it's blown up, but it's blown up in a way we would recognise, in that it has. We need, because I changed the exclude value down here. It was now trying to cover the client code, so it's not additive. I need to also include the client code from the default, so kick that off again. So the web host for the flow library, so I just paid up for another couple of years, knowing the company had been acquired at the beginning of this year, and they've been talking about migrating from my account, the hosting account, to the new parent company. And having been told beginning of last week that they were starting to do migrations of accounts, I then got an email later in the week saying, unfortunately, we can't migrate your stuff. So you have until December the 9th, to find a new home for all of your applications. And as it turns out, the new host hasn't got a way to automatically migrate Node apps, which is disappointing. What's also disappointing is they don't seem to make an attempt to keep me as a customer, and to say, here's how we can work together to resolve it. So I've got to find a new host for the Flow library, and actually taking this opportunity to rework how it does some stuff so we can more easily host it in the cloud. At the moment, it relies on the file system to store some stuff. So that is one of those sort of unexpected, unplanned tasks that's actually now going to eat a couple of weeks of my time between now and December. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I need to do that to keep the Flow library running. So hopefully you don't see any side effects with that. There might be an evening of downtime just as things migrate and DNS updates, but anyway, I will draw your attention to the fact our coverage has jumped up, so it's now 67% on statements. That's still lower than, I thought we were in high 70s, but that's kind of our baseline now moving forward. So out of interest, if I just check so this has been updated. If I open up that's entirely unhelpful. One sec. If I refresh, you can see where we stand, just in terms of raw statements. All of the project's code, because it does so. It's the irony of it does lots of complicated interactions with Git, which trying to write all the unit tests for is a pain, and is easier just to manually test. So you can see we've got crappy coverage on those. You can see, we're up into 80s and 90s in lots of areas, which is, I feel better about. There's more we need to do. So, I want all of these to be at least 80%. Ideally, we want as many of these as is feasible to be mid 90s. Going largely across all these different columns. So that's a task. If it's an area you're interested in contributing to Node-RED, then that would be a really cool thing to help with. Just noticed code coverage generated by Istanbul, even though we've just spent all this time migrating to NYC. But there we go. I'm sure. I suspect the code reporter is still Istanbul code base. Right. Well, I think that's successful. We've got the code coverage reporting again, which is what we were missing. So I'm going to get that pushed up so we can start. start fixing this. Right. If we look at git status, we can see that it's actually created a bunch of directories that we don't want. That one under packages no modules was from one of our trial runs that we definitely don't want. Git status. And if nyc output is a directory that's going to be habitually being created, then what we're going to do straight away is go and add that to our git ignore, because we don't want to be checking in that stuff. So, very important part. This whole point of this exercise was to get rid of Mocha Istanbul. So now we can actually get rid of Mocha Istanbul. So that's that bit. We don't need to load the npm task, and we can go to our package.json down. So we do not need. Oh, why have you got Istanbul there explicitly? Right, I'm going to come back to that in a moment. What we are going to do is get rid of Mocha Istanbul because we don't need that. I think the reason Istanbul is there as a standalone module is because of this stuff. So this is commented out. We've disabled it for the time being. This is, we would run on node 10 our UI tests, grunt test UI. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, okay. Before I push this, I'm going to do a bit more work offline. Because what this commented out line was doing was, as well as running the tests by just running grunt, it would then generate an Istanbul report, and it would then send the output from that to Coveralls, which is an online service, which I haven't been to for a long time. I can't even remember if it's coveralls.io. Usually is. So this gives sign in. Oh no, that's way too much status to see for the moment. Anyway, Coveralls is how we then, when pull requests come in, it can automatically run coverage, and it reports back on the issue on the pull request coverage stats. And I commented out a bunch of stuff because I had to disable our UI tests because they were just too unreliable and causing too many false positive failures. But when I did that, I can see I've also removed that coverage reporting. But you can see here, before script, it would install Istanbul and Coveralls on the command line. But the fact that's there means I'm pretty certain we don't need Istanbul being installed separately there. Okay. That's good. Yeah, okay. We're gonna run with this for the moment. So we've tidied that up. We've just fixed up those tests. Let's send this up. Migrate to NYC instead of Istanbul for code coverage. Push that up. Oh, it's 10 past. I want to go and have a cup of tea. Right, that's pushed. What we can do is, why is that not got, oh, here's node red. Just have to wait for the internet to work. Yeah. Right, so it is kicked off a build automatically on 4 different versions of Node. And yeah, it's basically queued, and rather than watch paint dry, I'm going to wrap up and go and have a cup of tea. So that was successful. We got 1.2.2 released. We've fixed fixed our code coverage collection. We've highlighted there's definitely some gaps that need filling in our code coverage, and it's a great rainy day activity. Sometimes, so I can guarantee, in a future Monday live stream when I've not got some active development on the go, we'll be diving into these stats, picking one of these files and just working out what's missing. So if you've not seen it, we can click in, list all the files, so you can hear, again, it's the projects feature. But if we go into in fact, let's go into lib storage. Bad example, there's only one file. Okay, so here's an example, the util in storage local file system. When we go in, you can see how it gives you the marked up view of the file. It gives you this count. Can you see that? Zoom. Why won't you zoom? So it gives you a count as to how many times each of these lines has been evaluated. It highlights in red lines that have not been evaluated. So here the tooltip says if path not taken. So it's hit this if statement, but this condition wasn't true, so it has not gone into that if. So as you scan through and you can see these red lines, we haven't got tests that are hitting those lines. And in this instance, given those lines are error cases, we ought to have tests that verify the right thing happens when something goes wrong. If we look at, as I say, there's some are better than others. Oh yeah, index has dropped quite a long way down. So if we scan through, these blobs of red are just prime test cases needed to cover these areas. So we'll dive into that in a future stream, get these numbers up. I think for the 2.0 release in April, it really ought to be our goal to be in the 90% across the board on these. And the whole point is to have good confidence in the tests, so that when you make a change, you can make it in confidence that your test coverage is sufficient to catch any unintended side effects. But an area we are missing are the integration tests. We have a lot of unit tests, but not as good integration tests. So that's something else for us to think about and try and find time in the schedule to prioritize. Right, lots of waffle. Let's just go check back in on our build. Is it still queued? Let me just refresh the page just in case there's some caching going on. What's going on, Travis? Yeah, still waiting to be queued. Okay, I was kind of stalling, hoping that would kick off so we could see something, but it's not going to happen. I'm going to call it there. So there will be no stream next week, unless England enters a lockdown, which the government have said we aren't doing, which probably means we will be doing. But if it doesn't happen, then I'm on vacation for a couple of days next week, so I won't be here next Monday, but I will be back the Monday after. If we're locked down, I won't be going away, so I probably will carry on streaming. I'll tweet what my plans are. Either way, something will turn up on YouTube if I do stream. Try out 1.2.2. If you've already installed it and you're happy with it, then do leave a comment if you're watching the YouTube live stream. As I've said before, we are so reliant on the community feedback. The reason we do the betas is to try and flush out some of these issues before we do the final release. We didn't have as long a beta period for 1.2, and consequences, a couple of things have crept out in that release that we ideally would have caught in the beta, but we can only do what we can do. So with that, I will say good night, have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Thanks for joining, guys. Thanks for joining the chat. Always good to see you guys there. And bye now.